All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to StriveScan College Launchpad. We're so excited to have you participating in this event with us. We have some fantastic panelists here with us today. The panel will last approximately 45 minutes in length. My name is Stephanie, and I will be your facilitator. Before we get started, I have just a couple of quick housekeeping items for you. Just a reminder, your camera and microphone are off, so our panelists cannot see or hear you. You can use the Q&A button though on your screen to type questions to our presenters at any time during the panel. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so please be sure to check out the schedule on the website. And this presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/launch. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jen Sloan. I am from University of Cincinnati. As you can probably see, I have a couple other colleagues that are here with me as well, and I will let them introduce themselves in just a moment. Just so you have an idea of what to expect from the session today, this is actually a presentation that we've done in a lot of different ways over many years. So we're excited to get to bring it to StriveScan. And really the goal is to help you kind of expand your knowledge of what STEM actually means. I think most often when students think of STEM, they think of engineering, which is correct, but there are also so many other ways to explore STEM. And we're excited to kind of delve into some of that as well, and hopefully give you some ideas that you may not have thought of before when you know that your interest is sort of science, math focused, and where you may be able to focus that energy. So we're each going to take just a few minutes to tell you about our individual schools, and then we will dive into STEM specific. And certainly please feel free to put questions in the chat as we are going. We're happy to be conversational and be able to address some of your questions as we're talking as well. So I will hand it over to Kelly Allen.
Hello, and thank you for joining us this evening. We're really happy you've taken some time and are sharing some of your time with us. My name is Kelly Allen. I work for Iowa State University, which is in Ames, Iowa.
Kelly, I think you accidentally muted yourself.
I did. I apologize. Did you hear any of that? I'll start over again. Hi, I'm Kelly Allen from Iowa State University, which is in Ames, Iowa. I should mention that all three are here in the Chicago area. I've been doing this work for quite a while, and I'm more than happy to be here with you guys this evening. Thank you for sharing your time with us. Iowa State University is a large science university. Our full name is Iowa State University of Science and Technology, which speaks to who we were when we were founded in 1858 and who we continue to be in this day and time as well. I'll go ahead and have sorry, Tara, go to the next slide. We do have quite a lot to offer in our majors. We have 6 academic colleges within the university, all very science-based, but not exclusively. We're kind of a quirky S&T school. Our full name is Iowa State University of Science and Technology. But we have a full College of Business and a full College of Design, which is pretty unusual for an S&T school. But 6 colleges of study, more than 100 programs of study for you to choose from, and over about 58 of those are STEM-based. And we'll get into some specifics about the schools and what we have to offer in our programs as well. But that's a little bit about who we are. We have about 30,000 students or so that do enroll at Iowa State. About 25,000 of those are pursuing undergraduate degrees of study, and a large percentage of those are from the state of Illinois. So I'll pass it off to my colleague. I believe Tara's up next.
I have to unmute myself. Sorry, I'm going to go back to sharing the screen. It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting without a tech glitch, right? Hi, thank you so much for being here. I echo everything that my wonderful colleagues have said. We're really glad you all made it tonight. A little bit about Michigan Tech. So my name is Tara Brewer. I, like my 2 wonderful colleagues, I'm located out of the Illinois Chicagoland area, but work for Michigan Tech, which is actually located in a super unique region of the country. We're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So when most people think Michigan, they think the glove. Well, we're actually the other mitten, kind of just north of Wisconsin, about 2 hours north of Wisconsin, on this beautiful little Keweenaw Peninsula, surrounded by Lake Superior. We are one of the 3 snowiest colleges in the country, with about 280 inches of snow every year. And we do feature about 7,000 students, just a little under 6,000 of those are undergraduates. And about 80% of them are coming for something in the STEM field. So we're a true medium-sized college located in a very rural part of the country that has a very unique climate. And we are very focused in our programming on campus. So everything we do at Michigan Tech does have a little bit of a STEM flair, including like our arts programs and our communications and business, and everything is sort of just a little STEMmy. And we are very focused in on research. I'm going to switch the slide. I love this picture because it showcases that we do have snowboarding as a gym class and skiing as well. We do have our own ski hill. That's a campus facility. Again, kind of a nod to our outdoor environment that we're in. It's one of the top 10 outdoor adventure lanes in the country. And we are very hands-on, not just with outdoors, but also with research on campus. And then very just kind of connected. When you have 7,000 young adults in such a unique location, it makes for a pretty exciting campus environment. And you can see some of the stats on the screen there, and I'm not going to read those to you because I feel like you can do that yourself. Please don't forget to enter in questions into the Q&A, but at this point, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague, Jen from University of Cincinnati.
Okay, so hi again, everyone. So I'm Jen Sloan from University of Cincinnati. As Tara and Kelly have said, I too am based in the Chicagoland area. I work with students from about 7 or 8 different states, but primarily in the Chicago area. So University of Cincinnati is a large public research university. We are very urban. We're located in downtown Cincinnati. I'm sorry, we're about 2 miles from downtown Cincinnati. So what you'll notice from the picture here, though, is that you can't drive through our main campus. So it's kind of a unique setup in that you can walk pretty much anywhere on campus in about 15 minutes or less. It's very easy to get around, but the downtown area is about 2 miles from us. So very easy access to all that the city has to offer. So a lot of students like that balance of traditional campus with very easy access to the city. We are a large school. We have just under 47,000 students in total, with about 27,000 undergraduates on our main campus. You can see our student to faculty ratio, but the number that I kind of like to share is that less than 83% of our classes have less than 50 students in them. So I get asked a lot about student to teacher ratio and things like that. And I know what students are really wondering is, am I going to spend the first 2 years sitting in a large lecture hall? And the answer to that question is no. You certainly could have a few classes that are a little bit bigger, but I like to put that out there because I think it puts students' mind at ease to know that this will be a much more individualized experience than what they're expecting for a school of our size. We do have about 350 different majors and programs in our 9 undergraduate colleges. I won't name them all for you, but I will tell you that while we certainly have a variety of things both in and out of the STEM fields, each of our 9 academic colleges will have something STEM related. So my guess is that may come as a bit of a surprise to some of you, but if STEM is your focus, it certainly doesn't have to be a narrow one. There's a lot to be able to choose from. The one thing that I do want to highlight academically that we're best known for at Cincinnati is what we call our experience-based learning. I know both of my colleague colleges also have co-op. Cincinnati is proud to say they are the founders of co-op education. And a lot of our STEM majors, including all of our engineers, participate in a required co-op program that includes paid work experiences as a part of your time with us. If you go to the next slide. And then just a little bit more about Cincinnati, if you're not overly familiar with us. We actually kind of sit right in the southwest corner of Ohio. We're very close to Indiana and Kentucky as well. Downtown sits right on the river and the border end of the state. The metro region has about 2 million people. We do have one of the largest areas of largest number of Fortune 500 companies per capita of anywhere in the country. A lot of people don't know that about us and are surprised to learn it. So we're always excited to share. Some programs to highlight, just so you know what some of our unique and more competitive programs are going to be on our campus, would be our College Conservatory of Music, our College of Business, anything in engineering and design, architecture, art. We do have a direct entry nursing program, and then medical sciences in our College of Medicine. We are Division I for athletics. We have over 500 different student clubs and organizations. So there's a lot of ways for students to get involved. And I would go so far as to say there really is something for everyone on our campus. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of a nice overview of how each of the three of us are a little bit similar as well as a little bit different. And I think now we will dive into a little bit more about STEM.
So we always kind of like to start these presentations with what is STEM? And I know Jen kind of mentioned it in her intro, but it is worth noting that STEM is not just engineering, it's not just math. And lately, as the tech industry grows, it's not even just technology or science anymore either. Like there's STEM that's integrated into arts and music and a lot of different fields, the food we eat, the clothing that we wear. And so it's nice that you won't have just 3 or 4 different majors to pick from. You actually probably have way more than that. And so coming here today gives you a chance for us to kind of showcase what some of those unique ones are. And then of course, talk about some of the ones that you already know as well.
So I would say we always kind of like to start off with the difference between a scientist and an engineer, because I think sometimes we don't really think about what that means and how they're different. But especially with a STEM focus, I think we often feel like this is a really good foundation to set of which is which, how are they different, and which one might be more of a draw to you. So on the surface, they're both going to be relatively hands-on. You're going to see scientists spending quite a bit more time focused in a lab setting, whereas an engineer is likely going to be in a little bit more practical setting, where they're hands-on, maybe building, constructing. It could be large scale, it could be smaller scale, depending on what that is. One example that we've used recently, because it's relatively new and relevant, is when you think about COVID over the last couple of years. And I was thinking about one of the times we had this conversation with students last spring, that when you think about how a scientist versus an engineer has fit into helping with working through COVID, the scientists obviously are going to be the ones in the lab that may have been working on things like, say, a vaccine or a drug treatment for COVID specific. Whereas if you think back to a couple of years ago, one of the things that was a huge problem was not having enough ventilators in hospitals. And so what was a quick way to be able to create and craft those maybe differently than traditional manufacturing? That would be more of the work of an engineer. So I'll let Kelly and Tara add a little bit more to that, but hopefully those are some, we can give you some concrete examples of how to think differently about scientists versus engineering to start to think about what might be a best fit for you and your interests.
I was just going to add too, another way that I sort of describe the difference between a scientist and an engineer is a scientist often asks like why or how, and an engineer often is looking at how to solve a problem, like more like the scientists ask the questions and the engineers answer the questions, like they're solving problems. So like one's a questioner and one's an answerer, if that makes sense. But I think it's important too to note that scientists and engineers often do overlap quite a bit too. So even if you start off as an engineer, you may end up doing work as a scientist and vice versa. My sister has her PhD in physics and she got offered quite a few like engineering positions when she graduated. It doesn't always happen, but there can be some crossover too. And that kind of is another great reason why you're here, because you're seeing how the STEM field really is like this like family tree that like works together and intertwines and crosses over in so many different ways.
And when we're doing these presentations in person, we like to start them too by asking the students, what are issues that you see in the news that you experience yourselves, in your family, in your community? What are things that are challenges that need to be worked on and worked through? And I agree with Tara that that's a lot of times where things kind of become more hybrid-y and intertwined between the scientists and the engineers. And the bottom line is both camps are really trying to work on things that are beneficial to all of us.
And I think one more thing to add on that, although it's major related, but one more thing to add on the scientist versus engineer is, I know one of the really large stress points for students in the college search process is choosing a major. What do I want to do and what do I want to commit to? And even each of the three of us have a very different process at our institutions as to how you apply to your particular program. And I think one of the things that's important to know is that while there certainly are some great specialty programs, even within engineering, just because you've chosen a specialty doesn't mean, like Tara said, that you couldn't work in another one. We just had, I was just reading a story about an electrical engineering grad this year from Cincinnati, who is actually starting her career in aerospace. And she took a very specific path and used her co-op opportunities to give her some of that experience to get where she wanted to go. But we have an aerospace program. It was not the long-term program that she decided was of most interest to her. So she found a way to use her interest and her background in electrical engineering to move her career toward aerospace. So I would say definitely keep in mind that it's okay if you don't know exactly which one you want when, and even if you follow a certain path, it can lead you lots of different directions.
Okay, I'll start us off with this one. I think each of the three of us are going to offer some things for your consideration about things that you might not consider to be STEM programs, but really truly are. Jen had alluded to the fact that there are quite a few things out there that people tend to think of: the engineering, the math, the statistics, which are all truly valid STEM programs. But each of our three schools have some unique-ish things to be considered as well. For example, at Iowa State, we have a major in culinary food science, which is not the training to become a chef. It's a heavy-duty food science program of study. We have enough culinary skills to be dangerous, I like to jokingly say. And those are the people that are going to be creating things that could show up on store shelves. For example, we have a student who was working in her co-op and was working to create a new Pop-Tart flavor that's actually on the store shelves now. It's an Eggo maple flavor. You can look for it on your store shelves. I have a sample of it I haven't tried yet. That's kind of a unique thing that you can think of too. That's not just the things you think of on the outside, but really diving into the inside. Also something along the lines of landscape architecture. That's a STEM program that we have as well. And it's not just how you're designing golf courses, but also your homes, the public spaces you have in a community. That's a big science program, along with having the artistic aspect of architecture as well. So kind of broadening your viewfinders can really kind of give you some things to think about. All three of our schools have opportunities to do research too, which gives you the chance to be getting your hands dirty right away. That gives you kind of another view to the programs you might not consider. Some of those found majors that you don't know of right on the top, you can have a professor that makes mention of something and that could lead down the path of something that could be a great fit for you.
And those are some great examples. I have a few others to share from Michigan Tech. One of the ones that I like to talk about is through our environmental science, our College of Forestry Environmental Science, where we actually have a 5,000 acre research forest where the students are taking samples, running tests, and really monitoring not just the landscape, but the ecology systems out there. And it's one of the largest testing facilities of its kind in the country, which is pretty cool because they're getting this very unique experience again in this super unique part of the country where it's often very snowy. And then another one is through our visual and performing arts department. We have theater tech and then audio production, sound design, and then theater performance as well. But some of those students go on to do the audio and visual, like special effects and features in video games and animation for Disney. And you wouldn't often think that's STEM, but it's a lot of computer science. It's a lot of running wires and electrical engineering. And for the special effects in the theater department, that takes a lot of like physics and understanding the way things are going to work and play out and what makes the most impact visually. And then the final one I like to talk about is human factors. It's actually a branch of psychology that directly relates to technology. It's basically hybriding psychology and how tech performs. So a human factors team, for example, would sit and kind of work out what's the best way to design this new phone or include this new feature on this new car or whatever it may be. But they take innovative technology and make it usable for people like me who have very limited tech sense, if that makes sense. So those are some of the ones I wanted to share from Michigan Tech.
So what I will share from University of Cincinnati specifically is our College of Allied Health Science. So I think a lot of times when students think of STEM and healthcare, we think first of becoming a doctor or a nurse. And while those are both wonderful options, anything in our College of Allied Health Science would certainly fall in the STEM category, but it would include things like becoming a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a speech pathologist. A lot of the programs that are going to be medical related without necessarily becoming a physician. Working in audiology. We actually have a program where you have an opportunity to work with animals related to sound and hearing through the audiology department. So lots of really cool opportunities that are all STEM focused, but they aren't necessarily where everybody thinks to go first. So it's one that I really like to talk about because it's some great options for our students, and we have graduate programs that go along with them. So there's an opportunity to really kind of do a deep dive into that career choice and to use your interest in science and math, but in a way that you maybe haven't quite thought of yet. Others that might fall in that particular college, anything in the health sciences, which for us is a very large program. Athletic training is going to be a part of that as well. So it's a pretty broad range of things that you can do with allied health that would very much be considered part of STEM. The other thing we usually like to do at this section is point out that when you're looking for a certain major, sometimes I think we tend to go to the academic college that we assume the program is in. And if you don't see it, you assume they don't have it. And so this is kind of your friendly reminder to ask questions and to dig a little deeper because, for example, there's a few programs that we all have something very similar to, but you'll find them in very different places. So the couple that I'll highlight would be industrial management, which is kind of like a merge of business and engineering. But at University of Cincinnati, you're going to find that in our Lindner College of Business, not in our College of Engineering. And we also offer, while we have a cybersecurity engineering program, we also offer cybersecurity and information technology, which you'll find in our College of Education, Criminal Justice, and Human Services. So if you were looking for those in the academic college where you might guess they go, I'm guessing that would never be where you would look. So I'll let Tara and Kelly share the same because we all have some hidden gems that I would encourage you to be sure to look a little deeper for.
I couldn't second that highly enough. I really truly think asking questions is your huge thing to make sure you're doing. For example, on our campus, we have a computer science major where the digital computer was invented on our campus in the 1940s. So we had that part of our life for quite a long time, but that's in our College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Whereas our College of Engineering does have cybersecurity engineering, software engineering, and computer engineering. So like Jenna just alluded to, the fact that you don't see it in the place that you're thinking it might be, always ask the question, because we can certainly direct you in the right place and make sure that you're not missing things as far as deadlines for scholarships and things along those lines. Making sure you're getting the right information from day one is super helpful, and we're more than happy to provide that to you.
So I'll just add that. So for example, our cybersecurity major is in our College of Computing. And it's a branch off of, like, very similar to Kelly at Iowa State, it's a branch off of our computer science program that is now its own standalone major. And I want to just say too, like, don't hesitate to reach out to us. I think that having a conversation about the STEM field that you're interested in can be helpful, especially with a professional like us we know just a little bit about everything. That if you tell us you want to work for NASA, or that you want to work in this industry, or you want to do this research, or if you have like a dream or a goal, if you have that conversation with us, we can help highlight some of the majors that will lead you or get you started on the path to on the road or the path that will lead you to where you want to go. So not just about asking like very specific questions, but even just having like an open conversation about, I really love this and would love to work doing this. And we can kind of help give you some guidance that way too.
Friendly reminder that there are people at every institution you're going to apply to that do what Tara and Kelly and I do. And we're really here to be helpful in this process. And I do want to pause for just a second. We have a question. As an aspiring environmental engineer and possibly a pilot, what classes should I take in college to better improve myself? So I will let everyone answer if you have different answers, but I would say first, I think determining whether or not pilot is something that you're interested in pursuing in a degree program is going to be a good place to start. Because if you're looking truly for an aviation program, there are some really wonderful ones throughout the country, but there are not that many of them. So it will really narrow your college search if you are truly committed to an aviation degree program. You don't have to have a degree in aviation to become a pilot. So if you think that is an interest you want to pursue outside of school, that's okay too. But knowing that, I think, is going to be a really good place to start. And then with environmental engineering, I think that in and of itself would be a program that you would really want to seek out that particular major. And or find out what an opportunity may be to combine an engineering program and an environmental studies program. So there are many schools that offer both. There are some that offer one and then the other, but I think figuring out that piece of it would be a good place to start.
And I can chime in about the environmental engineering part. At Iowa State, that is a minor on our campus. It's not a full major. I think the thought process and the philosophy from our faculty and staff there is that environmental engineering is a huge umbrella of a program to get into. And oftentimes it's best served, it can be best served if you're pursuing that as a graduate student, that taking the time to focus on something that you're leaning towards most heavily in your area of study as an undergrad is a great way to then make sure you're getting into what you want most to have the higher education in your master's program. But that's not the same every school. So that's another thing, asking the questions of the individual schools. How do they provide that? What do they offer as far as that goes? And how does that differ from other places is also very helpful in your search.
Sorry, I was going to jump in too on that because Michigan Tech does offer environmental engineering, and we sort of team up different fields of engineering through our College of Engineering that just makes sense. So for us, civil, environmental, and geological engineering makes sense to be combined. It's not like when you major in environmental engineering, you are majoring in environmental engineering. It's just some of the professors that teach environmental engineering will also teach some courses in these other engineering majors because you have to take similar coursework because there are, again, crossover in the different fields. And I think it's nice when you are looking at environmental engineering specifically, looking at what kind of research and coursework you're taking and what kind of companies come to hire in those fields, and that it's work that you want to do because it is so broad. Environmental engineering, essentially, the reason it teams up with civil is because it's the engineering of how people perform on the planet, right? So civil engineering is how we perform and how we create societies and what impact we're having on our surroundings, with a focus on the civil part of it. So like the humanity part of it, where environmental engineering will focus on the civil part of it. Like they want it to be high performing and do the job that it needs to do to function properly at an optimal level in society. So think like how our water runs or how our cars, consume energy or gas. But then they also want to put an emphasis on the environmental impact as well. And where do we find that perfect in between, or as the best in between that we can is probably the better way to say that. So think about like solar technology and wind and all of that. Yes, but there's some really great untapped resources too, like water energy and things. So kind of looking at where the different department is going and what they've already done is helpful as well.
Okay, so opportunities outside the classroom. I think all of us have some really cool opportunities. Some of them we've touched on a little bit, but I think while there can be some really great out of the classroom opportunities for any of our programs, our STEM students really have some cool opportunities to really get their feet wet with their program and get to explore. One that we'll probably all highlight a little bit is co-op, because that is really common with our STEM majors specifically. If you aren't familiar with co-op, what is going to be true for how virtually everyone offers it is that is a paid work experience that's built into your educational time. Other than that, it can look different at every school. So for our students in engineering at Cincinnati, in our information technology program and cybersecurity, they participate in what's called a mandatory 5-year 5 co-op program. So it does take 5 years to complete the program. It's still 4 years of school and 4 years of tuition, but you are building in 5 full semesters of paid work experience as a part of your time with us. It does not have to happen in Cincinnati or in Ohio. It can be all over the country. It could even be international work experiences. And an average co-op student for us earns about $10,000 per rotation. And as I said, you complete 5 of them as a part of your time with us. So it's a huge hands-on learning experience for our students. It helps about 75% of our students who co-op get a job offer from a co-op employer. They may or may not take that opportunity for any number of reasons, but it does give them an opportunity then to have a job offer to leverage again somewhere else that they may be applying, who may be offering something completely different. And now they have an opportunity to negotiate. But in addition to that, as I think Kelly mentioned, we're all research schools. So Cincinnati is a Research One institution. We do over $500 million of research in a given year. We have a medical campus that gives some of our students an opportunity to be hands-on right on our campus. And the opportunities really are endless to be able to explore. So whether that's through hands-on work-specific experience, if you have an interest in research, we're not going to cap your, we don't require that you're at any stage in your college career to be able to be involved in research, but it's also okay to not know right when you get to school exactly what you want to research. That's certainly one of the things that you can figure out as you're going through this process. But I really think that the hands-on aspect that come from those opportunities give you a lot of opportunity to figure out more about your interests and your goals and where you want your next steps to be after graduation as well.
And I would second everything that Jen just said about co-ops and those experiences. I know many of our programs do not flat out require them. It's very, very strongly encouraged that you do, because it does. It gives you that hands-on, taking what you learned in book knowledge and putting it into practice out in industry, and giving you a chance to see if you like that, that setting that you're set in as a good part of the country for you to be in. Is it the type of company you want to work for, like a mom and pop shop or a Fortune 500 company? So it's kind of a multifaceted chance for you to kind of really take this for a test drive. I think all 3 of our campuses also have clubs and activities that are very focused on things to do with your majors. We have a lot of clubs on our campus at Iowa State that are just for the sheer fun and enjoyment of it, but quite a number of them that are very related to your majors too. Having a chance to be a person in that club and working to create things like a solar car or different types of competitions that our campuses can be in. But those things that they're creating is also a great way to put what you're learning in the classroom into practice and kind of learn things. And you would not be working in a silo. It wouldn't just be STEM students. You're going to have business students and all kinds of different students from the various programs of study creating these things together as a team. Maybe having funding from a company where you're having a CEO and a CFO that you're creating within that club, and having those experiences and activities too are a huge thing to take advantage of.
So I second everything that my colleagues have said. Yes, go to the career fairs that your different colleges and campuses will host. Meet with your career services department. A lot of times they are not just going to help you build a resume or develop interview skills, although they do all of that. But sometimes they'll sit down with you, and like I mentioned earlier, they'll have that consultation, that conversation where they'll kind of figure out what you want and then help you find the right path to get there, or the best path for you. They also will help you with some of the nuanced things that I wouldn't have thought of when I was a high school student or even a college student, but like salary negotiation and negotiating like a benefits package and what are the pros and cons of all of that when you do start to get these multiple offers in, because a lot of our STEM students and students campus wide will have multiple offers and have opportunities to negotiate and pick and choose. The only other thing I would add to opportunities outside the classroom that my wonderful, amazing colleagues have not already covered is like the fun stuff too, like the Greek organizations and the Christian clubs and the choirs and the bands and the, bird watching club, right? Iowa State, I think. So there's just some really wonky ones and some quirky ones. And like like Jen had mentioned earlier, really something for everybody. And if there isn't something for you, that is an amazing opportunity for you to create something and then add that to your resume as well. Campus environments, I think, is an important slide and an important thing to mention too, because like you're hearing from Jen and Kelly and I, each of us have a very different campus environment. Some of us may be a little bit more extreme than others. In the sense of like 200 inches of snow, but they also have like a certain personality or a feel to them. And so just I'll speak quickly to Michigan Tech and then Kelly and Jen will speak too. But like I mentioned, we are the third snowiest college in the country and our closest urban area is 4 hours away and it's Green Bay. So it's not like it's a giant city either. Our students really are very connected to their campus community. Our average student comes from like 10 hours away from home. So you can't just go home every weekend and get your laundry done. It develops a lot of independence and a lot of adventure. And there's definitely like a personality to a Husky, a Michigan Tech Husky. There's also sort of this energetic vibe on campus that you can almost feel. And it's kind of fun. And I've heard my colleagues say this before too, to go to a college campus and maybe just grab a cup of coffee at the local coffee shop right there on campus and listen to what the students are talking about. Like, what are they discussing? What are they learning? What's the conversation between, student to student or even student to professor, if you get an opportunity to kind of be a fly on that wall? It gives you an idea of like, do I fit in? Is this a conversation I want to be a part of? Or is this a group that I want to join? And of course, visiting the campus is the best way to do that. These virtual opportunities are a great way to kind of like dip your toe in, but getting to the physical campus will really give you that full immersive experience.
Yeah, I second that. Coming to campus is huge. I mean, now that we're largely past having regulations on what we can do for families to come to campus to visit, boots on the ground is the most important part, in my opinion. That a lot of what you see on websites and publications, that's very 2D, literally, and it needs to be that way. It's a piece of the puzzle. But having the chance to see campus in person is huge. That kind of hairs in the back of your neck feeling about really liking the place or thinking, well, it's not bad. That's also a huge part of figuring out where you'd like to go. And like Tara said, I can't second that highly enough. Don't go to the chain restaurant in town. Go to mom and pop local place. Ask where people tend to go that are specific to that particular town. Look at the message boards in the student union. Have a chance to see what they're talking about and what's coming up on campus. In Iowa State is probably what I would say is your average suburban type of a setting. We do have a decent number of people on campus and living in town year round, but it does feel like a suburb. So that I think is a big part of our vibe on campus. We're about anywhere from 4.5 to 6 hours from Chicago. We're 3.5 hours south of the Twin Cities and 3.5 hours north of Kansas City. So we're pretty close to a lot of different large metros, but we do have a very suburban type of a setting on campus and a lot of things to be offered too to students and the people who live in town year round.
I would certainly agree with what my colleagues have said about visiting. There is no substitute for it, and we're thrilled that visiting really looks pretty traditional at this point for our students and families. And we do host summer visits. I think we all host summer visits. So we do get that question a lot. Sometimes there is a little bit of a lag of when summer visits become available because we have a transition time with graduation. But I think it's pretty safe to say at this point, if you were to visit most websites of schools that are going to be hosting summer visits, you should see some information out there now. I would completely second that visiting, exploring, Sometimes I think people come and just visit the campus. And while I think that's very important, leave a little bit of time to explore the area around you. So we're very urban. That's where we're especially different from Michigan Tech and Iowa State. As I mentioned, it's a very urban setting. And so, visiting different types of places and figuring out where your comfort level might be and where you think you may feel most at home. Like I love the idea of walking into a coffee shop and just kind of listening to some of the conversations and imagining whether that's a place that you see yourself and if you see yourself fitting in there. But then also figuring out what is close by. We have a lot of activities and not everything close to us is only urban. There's certainly opportunities to be outdoorsy and explore, not like there is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but certainly there is more than just the city around us. So I think taking time to get to explore all of that, because there's no question you'll spend the most amount of time on your campus, but it's not the only place that you're going to spend time. You will go off campus during your 4 years or 4 years plus, depending on what your program is aligned to be. And you want to be sure that that's a place that you're going to find fun and exciting things to do. So visit, explore, walk around, go on the official tour, but also take time to explore on your own and be able to learn a little bit more beyond what we're electing to share in that specific window of time. We do have one other question. So the question is, how would an international student be able to apply for financial aid at any of these universities or join a work-study program? And are there scholarships for students with a 3.5 GPA? I think we each may have some similarities and differences to our answers. I'll just say in general, I think we're all FAFSA-based schools. So an international student wouldn't be eligible to file a FAFSA for need-based aid. But I would say at Cincinnati, you can certainly reach out to our international admissions department specifically if you want to talk about your particular circumstances. Work study for Cincinnati, and I think for most of us, is going to be specific to our US-based students. It's not something we would be able to award without the FAFSA. Certainly there are scholarships available. I don't know if I have enough time to get into all of the nuances of the scholarships, but the most important thing to remember for our incoming freshmen at Cincinnati is December 1st is our early action and our scholarship deadline. All materials have to be received no later than December 1st, and we will automatically consider you for the merit scholarships for which you may be eligible.
I will say for an international student, it's best to work with the international admissions office or counselor, depending on the size of the campus. It could be one person, it could be a whole office, but there will be opportunities to help bring down cost, and they'll be able to best walk you through all of that. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We will help.
And I'll say ditto. And when it comes to domestic students, our scholarship deadline, we have two different portal for all academic scholarships that usually closes right around the holidays. It's not been posted yet as to what that deadline is going to be for the fall 23 class coming just yet, but we would get tons of information out to students about that. And we have an automatic scholarship procedure for merit scholarships for students upon applying and being offered admission.
So you can obviously see our contact information. We have just a couple minutes left if there are any additional questions, but please feel free to note our emails, reach out with questions after the presentation. As we've said, we're really more than happy to be helpful with all things STEM related, but really all things admission related too.
All right, wonderful job to all of our presenters. I learned so much myself, and I'm not even in college anymore. Let me see here. Let me get one final screen shared from my computer. Okay, and this will wrap us up for our time together during this panel. Thank you once again for joining us, to all of our attendees and especially all of our presenters. Students and attendees, when you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick, I promise, very quick 5-question survey. We greatly appreciate any feedback that you're willing to share with us. We do encourage you to check the schedule, sign up for any more sessions. There's more happening tonight and throughout the rest of the week. And just one final reminder that you will be able to find this session's recording as well I can't talk, as well as all other session recordings at strivescan.com/lunch. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.